I think we can all agree that Nintendo's cadence, their behavior, their posts and lack of posts, their announcements and lack of announcements, it's all been pretty bizarre lately, right? Like, it doesn't all add up. Their future is completely unclear, and now the best rumor we had of an April Direct, it blew up in our faces, and that chance to smooth everything out was sent to smithereens. But what if it all makes sense in the context of a different type of presentation? What if Nintendo is actually perfectly laying the groundwork for something that they used to do a lot of, and something that ties into a much more reputable leaker's claims that I think are flying under the radar? This theory has emerged, and I am kind of just chomping right in. So good morning, Mario, and good morning, Switch fans. Welcome to this weekend edition of the show where we talk about Nintendo's odd behavior. And I don't want to just hypothesize about what games could be there. Let's talk about things that are more concrete. Let's look at some leaks that have actually happened, some games we know are coming, and not jump to conclusions, but rather try and interpret Nintendo's strange decisions. Because on one hand, it seems like, man, they are ready for a new Direct. We don't have any games beyond June. We had a partner showcase in February. We need to know something. But at the other hand, like, they're doing things that indicate maybe there's no Direct, right? Like, they just gave us the Paper Mario and Luigi's Mansion release dates on Mario Day without much fanfare. Like, normally those would be absolutely accompanied by trailers in a Direct and given to us like, ta-da, Paper Mario, Luigi's Mansion. But no, it was just like, here it is. They've made a lot of odd Twitter posts. They have no April game. It's like back and forth. There's a May investors call. Nothing's been announced. Nintendo is supposedly scrambling internally because of the Switch 2 delay and like reorganizing their plans, trying to figure out what's going down. But this theory, I think, could explain it all. And let me know in the comments down below if you agree with me, if you think that this makes more sense than a general Direct, because the more I think about it, the more I think it actually might. And I gotta give a shout out to my friend Andres Restart, who put this idea in my head with his video yesterday about a Metroid franchise Direct. Nintendo has given a lot of game-specific Directs in the past to titles like Smash Bros. And Animal Crossing, more recently Splatoon 3 and Xenoblade Chronicles, but those were back in 2022, and they haven't done one since. It's something Nintendo likes to do when the slate is a little bit known, or when the slate is a little bit focused on one specific game. Now, we don't know much of the slate, but what if we don't know much because it is going to be focused primarily and maybe even entirely on one big new game? Now, I've said many times, and I still believe wholeheartedly, Nintendo has games beyond June. They have games for Switch 1 beyond Luigi's Mansion. Otherwise, they would have spaced out their already announced titles. They didn't do that. They have games. But what if they just have Metroid Prime 4 and everything else is kind of a filler, a port? Then it would make sense that, hey, maybe we can't deliver a full general Direct, but we could deliver a Metroid Direct. And this ties in with Jeff Grubb's report that he's heard there's a big Metroid Prime marketing move in May. May 2024 is when Nintendo is going to really rev the engine for Metroid Prime 4. And think about it. This game has been missing for years. It popped the first year of Nintendo Switch, and then it disappeared, and then it was restarted with the really sad apology video, and it hasn't been heard from since. I don't think Nintendo can just start dropping commercials for this game out of nowhere. I think it needs to be reintroduced. And how do you do that? Typically via Nintendo Direct. But if Nintendo's lineup is something like Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, Fire Emblem, Genealogy War Remake, and Metroid Prime, I don't know if that's enough for Nintendo to put forth a big general Direct. I think they would rather have Twitter drops and smaller presentations rather than a big Direct that gets people hyped and amped and then it feels really underwhelming. I mean, there's definitely been underwhelming Directs before, and this would be, I think, less than that. I assume there'd be a bunch of third-party stuff that they could kind of pepper in there, but maybe developers are just saving up for Switch 2. Or maybe the generational gap is too large that no titles are really able to come to Switch this fall and holiday season, and all the old franchises have been exhausted. They've ported Red Dead and The Witcher and BioShock and beyond. What if there just isn't a ton for a general Direct? And instead, Nintendo could opt for a Metroid-specific Direct in May where they reintroduce Metroid Prime 4 and show us exactly why this game is amazing and why it deserves to be the big holiday game. There's a lot of reasons why it does deserve that, and more so than waiting to the Switch 2 launch. I know some people think that it'll be saved for that because it could be a graphical showpiece and a big way to boost the sales of Metroid Prime 4. But I'm of the mindset that launching Metroid Prime 4 alongside a new 3D Mario, potentially a new Pokemon, and possibly other big Nintendo IP as well, is going to impact Metroid Prime 4 a lot. It will shift that thing down the sales chart because there's no way it can compete with Nintendo's tentpole IP. And if we do have a year where there's no tentpole IP, then hey, Metroid Prime 4 could actually succeed this holiday season being the big new Switch game. Maybe the only new Switch game. And if Nintendo is going to opt to save Donkey Kong for the next system and really just fill the rest of this year with ports and maybe some like touch-ups, then it would make a lot of sense to emphasize the power and the importance of Metroid Prime 4 with a specific direct. I feel like no matter what kind of direct they have, Metroid Prime 4 is going to get a major segment, and this would allow them to have as big of a segment as they want. And they could also give some shine to Metroid Prime 2 Echoes coming out today. They could shadow drop that thing like they did with Prime Remastered. And they could announce a later date for Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. Heck, they could even talk about the next 2D Metroid or hint at some sort of indie collab. Like, I think Metroid would be perfect for the way they did Zelda and Cadence of Hyrule. Like, they could do Metroid in any roguelite Metroidvania studio. We've seen Prince of Persia go roguelite, and that's pretty darn awesome. How about a Metroid roguelite? I think that would fit marvelously well. Or they could just talk about merch or new amiibo. I mean, it doesn't have to be a ton of games to deserve its own direct. It just needs to be one. But we know Nintendo actually has more because they're probably going to want to get out Metroid Prime 2 and 3 before 4 actually launches. I think timing-wise, this would make a lot of sense. And perhaps Nintendo's plan and schedule is actually going to be a weird hybrid of what we've heard and what we thought and maybe what we haven't thought. What if instead of having a general direct and saving the Nintendo Switch 2 towards the end of the year, if Nintendo knows they're going to have a very slight new release schedule, and I mean Metroid Prime 4 filled with Zelda Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Metroid Prime 2 and 3, games that aren't going to really move the needle a ton, then what's the harm in announcing the Switch 2 this summer? What if instead of having a general direct, Nintendo has a Metroid Direct in May, and then June, July announces the new system via some sort of special presentation or a Nintendo Summer Showcase, and they aren't really hurting themselves if the only big game is Metroid Prime 4. Because look, we know Metroid Prime 4 isn't going to do Zelda, Mario, probably even Mario Party numbers no matter what. Therefore, you're not like cannibalizing it by announcing the Switch 2. In fact, you could leverage Metroid Prime 4 as like, hey, buy it and play it this holiday season, and it's going to look even better on Switch 2. If Nintendo's lineup is very small in terms of new titles, filled with some filler of ports, it's totally fine in my mind to announce the Switch 2 this summer. And that would line up. Like, we don't have enough for a general direct. There isn't going to be another Switch 1 general direct. It'll be a Metroid Direct and the Switch 2. And then this fall, you can do another double down on the Switch 2. I know a lot of people believe they'll just announce, like on Twitter, we're working on the next gen of Nintendo hardware, and then later this fall and winter, really start talking about it. But maybe Nintendo, they do have games, but maybe they just don't have a bunch of new games, and therefore we're going to get a very adjusted and interesting way for Nintendo to really not do directs. They've already ditched the February direct. What's preventing them from ditching the June direct as well? I mean, Metroid Prime direct would be a direct, but you know what I mean? Like, generals could just be empty this year. Much of the reason we think they would wait until this fall is to leave space for what they have to announce for Switch 1 and get those games and all that hype out there and not cannibalize pre-orders. But what if there's just not that many games? I do always want to believe that Nintendo has a great plan and a great schedule, and I think they will fill the calendar almost every month. But if it's ports, I don't think that that's meaning Nintendo can't talk Switch 2. And I'd love for there to be Donkey Kong this year. I'd love for a new Mario Party. Perhaps that's just not in the cards. Maybe all of the reworking and reorganizing they had to do internally after the Switch 2 delay just doesn't line up for that much new. And maybe they really are saving first-party development and putting all their efforts towards Switch 2 to make that as desirable and alluring of a system at launch as possible. In some ways, that stinks because some of you would probably like more games on Switch 1, but in other ways, it would help justify and make your Switch 2 purchase all that more worthwhile. And maybe the games will be that much better because of it. If they are truly Switch 2 games and they're leaving Switch 1 more behind, then it makes the Switch 2, in my opinion, a better pickup. But all that aside, Metroid Prime needs to be reintroduced. Metroid Prime should come out on the Switch because it would bookend the Switch generation. They talked about it in year 1, it got restarted, they could release it in the final year. And I think they owe that to the fans. And I think it's actually better for the franchise, the future of the character, other games in the series, and just overall Nintendo business sense to sell this thing on Switch 1 first, not surrounded by any other major IP, not surrounded by any other major Nintendo titles. This might be the perfect and only time to do it from now till the next end of a generation. look, after this year, Nintendo is going to pepper in all of their big IP. They got to bring back Mario 3D. They got to bring back Zelda. And they got to bring back Smash Brothers and Animal Crossing and Mario Kart. Like, where is the good slot for Metroid Prime 4? I think if we look at Jeff Grubb, who I believe to be more reputable than Brazil, no shade Brazil, but like your whole rumor blew up and you don't have a huge track record. Jeff Grubb has said that he's heard that the same source told him Epic Mickey Rebrush comes out this year, Metroid Prime 4 comes out this year, he's heard about a big marketing move in May. This makes a lot of sense. And I think Jeff Grubb will be careful with Metroid, given that he was shaved by the internet previously on his incorrect Zelda and Metroid Nintendo Switch leaks. So I assume he's cautious. He clearly has a lot of desire to know and figure out the Metroid plan. And maybe the Metroid plan is just Nintendo's plan. Maybe that is what they have for 2024, and it's going to be a very Metroid Prime focused year. And that's why we haven't heard much. Because A, there isn't much, and B, they're getting ready to line up Metroid Prime 4 to be unveiled, re-unveiled, and shown off in May. And then they could actually even double dip again if they reveal the Switch 2 anytime before launch, whether that's summer or early fall. I personally am starting to really like and buy into this theory, this idea that Nintendo might not have a general direct. Like, I would love it if they did have a bunch of games, but at the same time, if Metroid Prime 4 is going to be the focus, get the shine it deserves, and be an absolute epic to close out this insane, amazing, one-of-a-kind experience for Nintendo fans with the Nintendo Switch generation, that doesn't sound too bad. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. I love you lots. SwitchForce out.